Thanks
Thanks for listening
to the
Boots
Boots
Fast
podcast.
Welcome to episode 12 of the Boots Off podcast. I am Mike Lahrman. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in life. On this episode, we're going to learn a little bit about planning, about not planning, about how to set yourself up for success as we welcome Tyler Bolken. Tyler is an Air Force reservist. He's a Citizen Airman. On the civilian side, he is a media strategist at Real World Marketing in Phoenix, Arizona. So Tyler knows a thing or two about branding and about facing the public with your best self. What I wanted to know is, how did Tyler get here? Because when he enlisted, Tyler was a Marine. Now he's an Air Force reservist. He's a marketer as a civilian. But he also has a podcast that debuts October 5th. So we're going to talk a bit about that. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my conversation with Tyler Bolken. So you're currently in the Air Force Reserve. You've been in the reserve for almost 3 years, right?
Yeah, 3 going on 4 years already. It's crazy.
And prior to that, you were an active duty Marine.
Yep, active duty in the Marine Corps for 8 years. So it was a little bit of a transition, but yeah, so far so good.
Yeah, and so let's talk about first, out of Idaho, what led you into the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so growing up in Boise, smaller area, and not a really prominent military force there. But when I was going to college, right out of high school, so let me rewind a few steps. I had initially wanted to join the Marine Corps right out of high school. We had a recruiter that came every once in a while. I probably had 1 or 2 conversations with him. And this is in 2004, 2005, right when everything is starting to, get a little hairy in Afghanistan and Iraq with everything that was going on. So as you might imagine, my parents, my mom specifically, was not crazy about the idea. So steered me away from it. I opted to, agree. And I went to school for a few years, Boise State. But that call to serve was just kind of always in the background. And ultimately I ended up going back into the recruiter's office, went home, got my birth certificate. I got everything that I needed to where my mom wouldn't be able to prevent it again. And I ended up going to the recruiter's office, and he told me that I could be a photojournalist in the Marine Corps. And I thought that he was full of it. I told him, I was like, hey, I came in, I want to join. Like, you don't need to sell me.
You're the second Marine I've had on the podcast who said, and you both said the exact same thing. Like,
right.
This can't be a real job in the Marines.
Yeah, because I was going to school for mass communication journalism. So I thought, okay, this guy is just trying to, because I told him that. I was like, he's just trying to sell me. I was like, dude, like, it's fine. Like, so I ended up joining at that point. And to be honest with you, I did not believe that my job was a real thing until I got to our schooling in Maryland. And the reason why is because, we're a very small community, and it's not like I met fellow photojournalists at boot camp or people like, and to be quite honest, I wasn't really sharing my job with a lot of people, just because I saw, as soon as the drill instructor found out somebody was, a food specialist or some job that they could drill into. So yeah, I ended up getting to the training school that we go to, and yeah, the rest was history, man. It was a blessing that, I am forever grateful for. That's for dang sure.
Wasn't that around the time, I don't know, this was around the time of Jarhead as well, wasn't it?
Right. That was, I think being published and released, like, yeah, right in the mid 2000s, right in that time frame. And for me, I don't have any military in my family. I don't, both my grandfathers served, but it was more or less that, that line of service. It was pretty normal back early on, like you went and did your 3-4 years. And So for me, it was never really an influence that was felt like close to home. And I guess I just wanted to have that story of my own. I guess it was a combination of a few people that were in my life. Like I had a math teacher that was not a lot of teachers got through to me, but he did. And I didn't know a lot about him, but I knew he was Marine. So that was one of those instances. And I've always been a huge fan of marketing and like advertising, and the Marine Corps, I guess, in my eyes, did an amazing job of, hey, they're the best. And, I know that to each their own for their respective goals, but I didn't want to look back. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do the service, I knew I didn't want to really make a career out of it, but I wanted to, go all in. And that's ultimately what came of it.
So did you ever consider another branch at all? The Air Force possibly?
I didn't. And looking back on it, because I guess like I was saying, I didn't really have that, in arm's reach, mentorship or somebody close to me to, hey, Tyler, like if you're going to join the military, everyone around me was kind of just like not supporting it. They weren't really crazy about it. So, as I look at, my sons, and if they were to consider that, yeah, I would, hey, let's have the conversation. Let's lay out the pros and cons of each. Like, what do you actually want to do? What do you want to accomplish? Because yeah, all of the branches, be it the Coast Guard, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, or whatever, they've all got, strengths and could call weaknesses, I guess. But yeah, hindsight, I probably would have, did a little bit more research. But yeah, ultimately the Marine Corps for me and what I was wanting at the time, yeah, I've never looked back. But
anyone I talk to says that the Coast Guard has it the best.
That's what I've heard.
I kind of feel like I should have considered the Coast Guard.
Right. And who would have thought, right? Like, yeah, it's a crazy thing, man. Like, my boss my CEO that I work for, her son is in the Coast Guard, and I think he's probably making a career out of it. And yeah, and I've never heard nothing but great things about, people that pursue a career in the Coast Guard.
Right. Yeah. They have great assignments. They have a cool mission. Right. They have a lot of the same jobs we have in the other branches.
Right. They're small and nimble. So that obviously, comes with a lot more responsibility, I guess, which is, see, man, that's the coolest thing about the military. No matter what branch you're in or what job, you are given the list of expectations that are so far and beyond like what a 19, 20, 23-year-old like I was is prepared for at that time. And it just helps you grow so much in a short period of time. And that's kind of what I've forever leaned back on is like, wow, like, I had somebody give me the responsibility that, in the professional sector, you probably don't usually get until you're 5-6 years in, and does that mean that we always perform it, excellently?
No, because you're not really prepared.
Right.
But just coming out of the other side of it, it's a great way to develop. Right. It sure doesn't feel like it at the time, but yeah, coming out the other end, I guess you could say, it's much better.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. And
so, I mean, did you have a good experience in the Marines? What's your overall? It was
excellent. I mean, my first assignment, I ended up going to a air base in North Carolina, Marine Corps Air Station, Cherry Point. And again, for me, like just a novice in the military, right? It was everything that was coming across was new. And to be able to go to an air station, like, again, like that was a side of the Marine Corps. Like I knew the Marine Corps was self-sustaining, and, I had learned by that point that, hey, we're equipped to basically do everything. That's what's unique about the Marine Corps is that they can go in by air, land, and sea. And so to be able to experience that side of the Marine Corps, the air side, like firsthand, it was incredible, to be a young photographer, journalist, and to be able to go shoot photos of Harriers and F-18s and to fly in helicopters and to be able to experience all of those things, like, man, it was awesome. It's something that I miss a lot, to be able to go out on the flight line and get with a Huey crew and say, hey, where are you guys flying today? And jump on with them, because it was really pretty much that easy. And, whether it was going out and shooting a 50 cal out of the back of a 53, like, man, just talking about it, like, you're only able to really experience those things in the military, and those are stories that I'm going to be able to forever tell my kids, and so to be able to do that. And I think for me, what always helped lead me forward was I was always planning. And I think that early on in the Marine Corps, like, okay, my plan is to serve 4 years. Like, that was really ultimately what I was going to do. But then when I got to the schoolhouse in Maryland, they talked about this marketing gig that you could do at recruiting stations in your second enlistment. So by that point, this is probably, my first 6 months in the Marine Corps. And I'm thinking, man, that sounds really awesome. And how great of a way to segue from service than that, because I could go into a metro area, still be a Marine, and really start to put to practice my professional, like, skills that I'm learning. So as I was coming to the end of my time in North Carolina, I opted to re-enlist, and I had kind of a wish list, because they call it a marketing and public affairs billet is what they used to call it. And it's not really a desirable billet, because usually you're a younger first-term Marine, so you're an E4, E5. I was E4, right in zone to be promoted to E5. And again, you're thrown into a position where you are a, multi-hat, like, you're responsible for multiple things with little supervision. So it's not a lot of people want to do it. So I got a pretty good wish list. At that time, there was an opening in San Francisco, an opening in Denver, and then there was an opening in Phoenix. And my first choice, I think in the journalism community, you might expect it was San Francisco. I was like, oh, wow, like, okay, marketing the Marine Corps and, telling the Marine Corps story in a place like San Francisco, like, that wouldn't be easy.
Yeah, and they're going to give you a BAH to live in San Francisco.
Right. There was always that side of it too, yeah. And so my choices were San Francisco, Denver, and then third was Phoenix. And you know what?
Denver sounds nice.
Oh, yeah. And I knew the guys really well that went to San Francisco and Denver, and I ultimately ended up getting Phoenix, and, forever grateful for that. I absolutely love it out here. And and I think too, like, one thing that I didn't necessarily give credit to was, Arizona itself is a very military friendly state. So to be able to do that type of job in that, realm, to be able to go to a new station, always open arms, like, was able to really build that relationship with quite a few folks, because Arizona and that's not to say that other places aren't, but it's a little bit more of an uphill battle, I would say.
Oh, I can imagine San Francisco.
Right. Or even Denver, possibly, especially, and that's always an evolving storyline. But yeah. And then Phoenix, like, to come into a marketing role, I was like, okay, wow, I can, I love telling stories. I love writing and, interviewing folks, but this is more of like a business application. Like, man, I can actually take this communication and apply it in a professional, like, purpose, that a business needs that will pay me. Because, once I got to Phoenix, I was, we're removed from the flagpole of being on an installation, right? It's kind of almost like an umbrella. Like, you feel like you're safe. Like, oh, I'm on, this large Air Force base, or, Camp Pendleton or Camp Lejeune. Like, it's kind of an umbrella. I guess that's the best way I'll describe it. And being removed from that, being placed in Phoenix, but still having to adhere to the, the customs and courtesies and the responsibilities of being a Marine, it's not easy. And, learning that and, excelling at it was something that gave me great confidence before I transitioned, because I started networking from day one. You know, it was something that I was always, you know, pursuing in the back of my mind, not like directly, but indirectly, like, okay, you know, always kind of keeping tabs on like that person works here. And, you know, they may be somebody that I would contact after my Marine Corps career is over. And just kind of always keeping that outlook is important. It was for me.
So it was setting you up for what you wanted to do on the outside. But
Right.
so a couple of things. Did you, in that role, did you see your impact that you were making with the overall Marine Corps?
Oh, big time, man, because that was, and I think for me, and, you know, a lot of service members, I think, find themselves in this position. You fake it till you make it. I know that's cliche, but, you know, you go in and you just work your butt off. And for me, that's what it was about. It's like, okay, took my skill sets that I had really honed, you know, my first 3-4 years in the Marine Corps on the photojournalism side. I was like, okay, that's what I'm best at, and that's what I take most pride in. So initially, when I got to the recruiting station, I went all in on those skills. Like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, produce the highest, you know, quality content for social media. I'm gonna, you know, shoot these videos, whatever it was. Kind of just really stuck to the, you know, meat and potatoes, what I knew I would excel at. And then as time went on, I started to, you know, learn from great mentors in the Marine Corps. And then also, you know, we had our corporate advertising agency at our disposal, J. Walter Thompson. And the team that they provide for us was amazing. So that was like another introduction to the corporate side of the outside world. Is wow, it was like J. Walter Thompson. I mean, I don't know if you watch, if you ever watched Mad Men, or, you know, they're one of the most famed advertising agencies in the world. And that gave me like an awe factor. I was like, oh, wow, you guys are the ones that, you know, the few, the proud slogan, like, you know, the phenomenal Marine Corps commercials over the last like 5 decades, like Slaying the Dragon, Super Bowl commercials.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this agency did that. So for me, I was like, it gave me the cool factor, like in what I was pursuing. It wasn't just a matter of like, wow, I want to do this, but this is actually pretty badass. Like I started taking more pride in it in that respect. And, yeah, then learning the, you know, the ropes of what does that mean? You know, what do I need to hone in on and become better at? What do I need to, you know, how do I better sell myself? How do I, you know, kind of align with, if I want to be in that position, you know, really planning out what I needed to do.
But was there any consideration of re-enlisting out of there?
No, there really wasn't. That was a difficult decision. You know, when you're 8 years in, which I know you know, very much experienced something similar. You know, for me, gosh, you're in pretty deep at that point. And I don't think that I realized that, like, when I made my second enlistment. I had made my second enlistment, and when I did that, in my mind, I was like, no, I'm going to do 8 years. So this, after the second term is up, I'm done. And I'm glad that I kept strong to my own personal word, because it got harder and harder as time went on, because you just get more immersed in the family, you know, the military, the Marine Corps family. You start to realize, you know, what some of your friends are doing, like they are staying in and re-enlisting. And, you know, by that point, they're going up in rank, you're getting paid better, you know, and you're pretty well invested from like a career standpoint. Like, wow, I'm 8 years into a career. And, you know, as you get more into being an adult, you start to realize, like, wow, do I want to restart? Do I want to, you know, go back to ground zero? And so when I came up against it, like that final year that I was in, I would say I was really convincing myself, like, Tyler, if you're going to get out, you need to, you know, really like kind of buckle up, like get ready for the worst, like, and do everything you can to set yourself up. So I started going to school, probably a little bit too late at that time. Like I ended up, you know, I still haven't fully gotten my degree, but my last 18 months, I was going to school full time online while I was active duty. And for me, that was as much about the schooling, like to better myself, but it was more about, okay, let's focus less on the Marine Corps. And that may sound bad. It's not like I was focusing less on the Marine Corps, but I was
No, but
starting.
you have to make a shift for sure.
Right. It was a shifting my mindset. So like being in that student environment, being in that, capacity, like, okay, now I'm studying. So studying marketing and entrepreneurship and learning about that and kind of just getting my frame of mind, making it more of a reality. And I think that was a huge thing that assisted with that, in addition to just not letting myself waver, because I could have stayed in. I could have went on to become a recruiter. I could have opted for a couple of other paths. And I think for me, I knew that the military was going to be hard to leave. And believe it or not, like just randomly, like because I really pursued a reserve opportunity in the Marine Corps. It's very limited in the Marine Corps. And by that point, I was a staff sergeant E6, and it's even more limited. So like for me, my options, if I wanted to remain in Phoenix, was I would have had to go Intel. And for the Intel community in the Marine Corps, like at that time, I don't know if it's still the case, but it's high demand. And, at that point, I would have had to go to a training school for 6 to 9 months, which would have been cool. I was really considering that, but it's like, at that point, like I may as well stay in,
Sure.
Right. And so I excluded that. And then literally about 2 months before I got out, I don't know what sparked it. If I saw an ad or whatever it was, but I was like, there's a large Air Force base out here. And I always had a fondness, like in our community, like in the photojournalism community, I knew that we all went to the same schooling. And I knew that for me, I kind of always had like this high level of respect for PJs in the Air Force. And I say PJs, but I mean the broadcast, that community, So I was like, I'm going to check it out, and got in touch with the recruiter. And I'm doing this for me. It's kind of like, okay, I'm justifying my exit from service. Like, oh, I can kind of still stay attached, even though all my Marine Corps buddies give me crap to this day. Like, it's an absolute sin to go from the Marine Corps to the Air Force. But anyways, it worked out, man. Again, like I just kind of put that plan to the vision to executing it, and had the conversations, and it worked out. And, to be honest, like it was almost too easy. Like I spoke with the recruiter. He got me signed up. I swore in, like literally it was on a Sunday morning on the day I exited the Marine Corps. And I was like, this something weird about this, because there's nobody there. And then I didn't come to my first drill for like 5 months, to when I met you and the team for the first time. And, I walk in that weekend and, got some of these more senior airmen saying to me like, oh, what took you so long? And being a smart ass, like what took me so long to wise up? And then, or like another one that I'll never forget. He said, well, welcome to vacation. and I know they're being smart asses, but
No, I don't think they are. I mean, for one thing, you're coming from the Marines to the Air Force. And on top of that, you chose to go reserve,
right.
which is a weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. So
yeah.
And with that, I mean, what TDYs have you had since you came into the reserve?
Right. And
I don't think there's been any.
There hasn't. That's been a mild disappointment, because while I was in the Marine Corps, 8 years at war, a lot going on in the world, I never had the opportunity to deploy. And I was slated for a deployment while I was in North Carolina. Things ended up working out differently. My son was on the way, and grateful things happen for a reason. But that was part of my itch that I wanted to stay associated with the service for. And when I spoke with my recruiter, and it's not his fault, but he's like talking about the TDYs that, Luke had gone on the previous 2 years, like, oh yeah, they went to Germany, they went to Okinawa. And I was like,
Hawaii.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Hawaii, yeah. And I was like, man, okay, like that could be pretty cool. And, and then, ultimately you're always still in the conversation. If something else were to happen, like whatever's going on in the news, that's service members, just way of life. You never know when that could ultimately happen. So for me, that was, and still is, it's something that I am open to, and should the opportunity present itself and, everything is, in line to do that, I would love that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that's part of why we joined the reserve. It's a big selling point.
Right.
Look at these places you can go for 2 weeks to a month or whatever.
Right.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And then you
Right.
get in. I'm on my second reserve term, and I went to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, North Carolina, for a few days.
Right.
That's been it.
Driven by Seymour.
Yeah. It's not much out there, I'll tell you.
No.
So did you have any challenges, though, when you were trying to separate from the Marines and go reserve in the Air Force?
Yeah.
Or was it pretty smooth?
It was smooth from a administrative standpoint. As I learned what I, got in touch with the right people, like the recruiter and, people on my side, like, what do I need to do administratively so that I don't prevent this? And I think, honestly, this is going to sound funny, the hardest part was the perception, right? And I think that could be said for any service, or family. Like, okay, I had a lot of concerns with not only, my Marine Corps family and, me kind of making this choice that a lot of them, jokingly disagreed with. It's since completely changed, but I think there was also, with family, it's like, okay, like you're getting out, but you want to stay in. Like why? Like, you did 8 years. And I think that that's a tough thing for anybody outside of the military to truly understand, like how much that cultural, like, belonging, and I think just the community aspect kind of embeds itself in you. And for me, just in meeting you and meeting, new service members, fellow airmen, to be able to share that camaraderie and that bond with is everything, because it's a brotherhood, sisterhood, unlike anything else. And I think the one thing that was difficult that I should have been more proactive about was, obviously, I didn't show up for my first drill assignment for 5 months. And at that instance, I think I was kind of living the honeymoon phase. Like, oh, I got out of the Marine Corps. Like, whew, like I'm done. Like, I think a lot of service members do that. Like, they think that they're owed something, like, oh, hey, I'm going to go back Europe. Like, it's a joke, but if there is a part of that, like you hear a lot of guys, they'll go back home and they'll live with their folks or whatever the situation, they'll kind of have a tough time getting into that new swing of life, And I think that lieu of time, like that I was waiting to go into the Air Force, I should have been more proactive on that. Thank goodness it didn't affect anything. But yeah, otherwise, no, man, it was smooth, like too good to be true, smooth.
When you think about it, so you're left with these choices of stay in the Marines, which, you'd already been working toward getting out, but still your options are stay in the Marines, pick up and move to somewhere else out of this marketing
Right.
subfield in the Marines. So you're probably back in a PA office or an AFN if you get lucky.
Right.
Overseas, or plant yourself in Phoenix or wherever you want to live and just have a steady reserve job where you can raise a family and have a civilian career as well, which was in line with what you'd been doing, right? So how much of that Marine experience actually carried itself to what you do now?
So much of it. And one thing that I'm going to mention, like before I go into that, was a big part of the, I know in the military it's joked about, as far as benefits and things like that, but man, I also did my research on that. So when I was looking at insurance costs for a family and handling that, for my first job when I was that I worked when I got out of the Marine Corps, it's like, wow, that's gonna, pretty much take $10,000 or so of my pay a year. And that was eye opening. That
Yeah,
was something
that's
that,
ridiculous.
yeah. And I hadn't dealt with that for 8 years. So I was like, wow, yeah, man, I may, that's also a big kicker to like what drove me to, really go into the reserves. And yeah, that shouldn't be dismissed, because that cost on the civilian side, especially coming into you're already transitioning like financially, professionally, in like so many ways, that I wanted to try and keep as much in my pockets as I could. But yeah, so in exiting the service, another thing that I had a couple of great mentors early on, in the Marine Corps, that were always talking to me about, like, okay, when you're doing this, like, here's how it would be done by a journalist from NPR or New York Times. Or if you're marketing your own stuff, like, yeah, we have those marketing tools in the service, like divots and some other resources, but ultimately it comes down to the service member. Like, you need to care about yourself, your product, your own career. And getting in that frame of mind, that was something that really was a catalyst for driving me to where I'm at now as a civilian. And just always knowing that, my career, my job, it's my responsibility. And here's the crazy part. So I did that, executed it to a T perfectly. Like, I landed this job with a real estate training company here in Tempe, and for me, at that point in time, it was the job. Like, it was everything that I wanted. And I learned a lot. Got my feet wet. I was working in the professional side, and I wasn't making great money, but I was okay with that. I was kind of back to like, okay, I'm okay starting back from the bottom and kind of getting to where I need to be. And then, man, I got fired like 7 months later. So I got out of the Marine Corps in April, and I got let go from these guys. So it's March, February. It's about 7 months. Not February, excuse me. September, like, is time frame. And I got let go. And for a service member, for me anyways, that was the biggest fear. And it just came to fruition. I was like, wow. There was a lot of doubt that came from that. There was a lot of I don't know, like, I shouldn't have got out of the Marine Corps. This was a mistake. Like, man, and I guess for me, what it came down to was just dialing it in. I went back to all of the trainings that I received in transition courses from the Marine Corps, and then obviously just my own like professional training that I had to that point. And I went to square one. I got my resumes buttoned up. I got my LinkedIn profile, dialed in, and I just did everything that, I was instructed to do, basically. Just kind of took my opinion out of it. I was like, and gosh, and it worked out. And I ended up landing this position with this agency that I've been with for almost 3 years now. And I've never looked back. It's just been everything and more from the respect of like what I wanted to do. So I mentioned that J. Walter Thompson ideology when I got out of the Marine Corps. That was kind of like the holy grail. Like, I would love to work at a place like that. Well, real world marketing, where I'm at now, we're a smaller agency, but we have a clientele across the country. So to be able to have that same experience, like to be able to work with the likes of Hulu and have reps at Google and Facebook and Pandora, like I don't know, to just be at that cutting edge of what's going on in marketing right now. Like, Facebook boycotts happened 2 months ago, and that affected us firsthand. Like we had a lot of our clients that decided to join in on that, and so stuff like that. That's really it's everything that I've wanted to be a part of, and I'm extremely grateful for it. And yeah,
no, and so you're talking about how you separated from the Marines, where you have this steady paycheck and a job that is there, and then
right.
your first gig out, you lose that, and so you have to adapt to
Right.
sort of um, you know fireproof yourself, I guess. Make yourself more hireable,
Right.
through these LinkedIn's and other methods. So is there anything that you would have done differently? Maybe is that something that you would have suggested doing prior to leaving the service?
Right. So there's kind of a trend here, right? I went and I joined the Marine Corps. I didn't do a lot of research, right? It's like, I want to be a Marine. I'm going to go in and boom. And that was eerily similar with this real estate gig. I thought that this was like perfection. Like there was not a plan B. Everything had worked out with that, like to where I was like, wow, I landed it, and it was perfect. The CEO there is a Navy veteran, and I was doing direct marketing, and from what I understood, they were a well-established, like well-oiled machine, like company. Since kind of changed my perspective on that a little bit, but yeah, so I would have had a better plan B, and I think that I would have been a little bit more patient. And at that time, there's so many things going on when you transition from just like an administrative, like paperwork standpoint. And oh, by the way, I was also planning a wedding at that time. Got married like the month that I got out, so that was a part of it.
You just do everything at once, don't you?
Yeah, was
the biggest milestones in life all at one time.
Right, was remodeling a house at the time. Like,
oh my gosh,
there was a lot going on. So like, and grateful for every bit of it, even the experience with the job, because I think getting fired like that, like it really God, it just feels crazy to even say, but it was difficult, man. It was a pit in my stomach, the welled up eyes driving home, like, wow, like that just happened. Like,
yeah. And you say you're getting married at that time, or you had already been married?
Oh, so no, we were married, and then my daughter was born a month earlier.
And so you're talking about welled up eyes. You're driving home saying, all right, how do I walk through the door?
Right. It was hard, man. And I think that that experience, just being thrown in the fire like that was not what I wanted, but maybe I needed, and for me, it was just like this ultimate recalibration and going back into the, job market. And at that time I had several interviews, and I was able to, better qualify like what I was looking for, like kind of, control my own destiny, but at the same time, just put myself in position to have that opportunity come to light. And with Real World, that thankfully happened, and, had a phenomenal director there, somebody that I still stay in contact with to this day. But she was just, I don't know that she realized it at the time, because I was, you don't go into a job interview with desperation, right? But man, in the back of my mind, I was just like, every one of those interviews, I was just wanting some validation. Like,
yeah, you just walk in, sit down, and slip them a 20.
right. Yeah, man. It was like, God, like, and at that point too, man, like we haven't really talked about this. Like, I think a part of me was was always resistant of like, I don't want to play the military card. I don't want to be that guy. Like, I'm not going to, hey, go into Denny's on Veterans Day and get 6 plates of pancakes, And
I've been there. That's me.
Yeah. But a lot of, there's a sense of entitlement, I guess, with some service members, and we're all guilty of it. But I think that's one thing, like a mistake that I made. I don't know that I sold my skills from the service, but I didn't play that card enough that, I was a badass. I was in the Marine Corps. I served the country for 8 years. Like, because it's kind of what the image is. And that's what people on the outside that don't necessarily have that experience. I mean, we're part of the 1%, Michael, and I know we say that and we talk about it, but it's a true statement. So I think that the better we can glamorize, like sell that image of it, but also translate the the practical like skills that I took from it. You got to kind of be able to do both. And I don't know that on the first go round, like like I said, he was a Navy veteran, and I guess I felt like, oh hey, the respect is mutual, like. But when I was going in for that second round of interviews, like, oh, you best believe, like, yeah, I played the service card, like, hey, like, I'm a qualified service member, but oh, by the way, like you should feel guilty if you send me out the door.
Well,
like,
it's very complex,
it
and
is,
we're all going to deal with it in our own way. I'm not even fully comfortable with when somebody says, thank you for your service, because I
right.
don't know how to respond to that. So just as you said, playing a veteran card, it's a balancing act,
Right. Totally.
and it's totally going to work for you because it's going to let them know that you're in most cases you're a responsible individual. If you have the degree from the military, that's another thing that they might be counting on from
Right.
you that not everyone's going to have. It's been mentioned on the podcast before, just going through TAP class and learning how to actually put together a resume,
Right.
The transition assistance program. There are a lot of people that don't know how to write a resume. So
Right.
they know, if they're familiar with veteran employment, they know that you're coming with a lot of skills. And so, first of all, I figured that's something that's probably on your resume, so
Right.
you don't necessarily have to throw it at them, like, come in wearing
Right. I think
red,
it's
white, and
about,
blue, but
yeah, because you hit that. So it's like where I wanted to kind of walk that line between tangible skills and cool factors. I didn't hesitate to kind of share a story or two with them that I would share with a buddy. Like when we've got service members or sitting around a table or grabbing a drink, you call it sharing war stories, right? So it's like, okay, what's kind of a story that I could tell these guys that, and for me it was that I was part of a national anthem ceremony at the racetrack here in Phoenix, and I was able to meet John McCain, and that was just one of those like cool factor type stories. Like, oh wow, like because I think that you want a little bit of that. You want them to not only have that respect, like, oh yeah, he's disciplined, he's driven, he's detail oriented, like most of those attributes that are quickly associated with a service member, right? But you also want that relatability, because I think that there can also be an intimidation with service members, especially if they are playing the red, white, and blue too much. It's almost kind of like, okay, cool, thank you for your service, but you're not right for the job. So there's got to be a you got to walk that line between connecting with them and letting them know that, hey, I did do that for 8 years, but it's not the only thing that defines me. I have these skills that, and I think just kind of being humble about it, going back to your roots, like, when you get a new assignment in the military and you need to come in and, there's rank in the military, but in a lot of capacities, I always thought the best service members, like the best Marines, were the ones that you couldn't tell their rank, if that makes sense. Like they came in, they're ready to do the work. And I think that I tried to channel that mindset. It's just like, yeah, yeah. I told you who I am and what I did, but more than anything, I want to come in and be a part of this team, like do whatever I can.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things that that most of us have is that we care about what's best for the organization. Of
Right.
course, we want to do what's best for ourselves professionally and personally, but when we're at work, it's all about the team.
Right.
And we work well in teams. So with all that experience, what would you tell somebody who is, I mean, we already know when it comes to enlisting, just walk past the Marine office, go straight to Air Force, because that's what Tyler has ended up doing. But
yeah.
but I kid. But okay, so somebody who's exiting the military in a year,
Right.
what kind of preparations do they need to do? What can they learn from you?
I think one of the biggest statements that I would tell somebody that was hugely effective for me, right? We have our parents, they'll say this to us when we're 15, but probably goes in one ear out the other. But it's like, what's your 5-year plan? And I think that when I was, in my first enlistment, and I wish I could remember who exactly said that to me, or maybe it was just a conversation I was having with myself, just planning things. And I was like, what's going to happen in 5 years? Like, okay, my sons will be this age. I will be this age. And that was just like a kick in the nuts, man. It's like, whoa. Like, and then I started thinking about my dad, my mom, like what kind of childhood I had. So that's kind of like a surface level statement I made to myself is like, hey buddy, like you need to stay the course. And quite honestly, you need to keep ascending. Like if you want to be able to provide that, upbringing, above what you had, or at the very least, at same your kids had. So I started kind of, and I guess I mentioned that from like a vision board perspective, like, okay, what kind of house do I want to live in? What kind of vehicle do I want to drive? What, kind of those happy thoughts. And that's where it started out. And then I think that the other big factor with that is that when you're in the service, and I know all jobs are different, but they will get every ounce out of your contract. Like you signed up for 4 years, you signed up for 8 years, whatever that is, they're going to get every bit out of you. So you need to really get good about managing your time and realizing that, wow, like, okay, whenever you start your ticker, like usually most of those transition training courses start 12 months out, like right in that window. But I think that you've got to be more about like 18 months. So like, kind of like I was saying, like what really drove me to start going to school was part of it. I was like, wow, I'm going to be out in less than 2 years. So I think that you need to start that internal time clock. And then beyond that, it's just like, okay, really start planning out those like events. Like, okay, in 3 months, I need to have this done. In 6 months, I need to have this done. And utilizing all resources you have, because that's one thing that is always hardest with fellow service members is when they say that they didn't have an opportunity or they didn't know about something. I know it happens, but at the end of the day, it comes back to controlling your own career, controlling your own destiny, because those resources are so plentiful in the military. And do we always have the best people around us, like guiding us for those? No, unfortunately. But I think that, we've all got the internet at our disposal. We've all got phenomenal podcasts like this. Like that was something that I was always, trying to dip into, is like, what are fellow service members doing? Like whether they were close friends or people from afar that I didn't even know. Like I could go on LinkedIn, and that was always motivating. It's like, okay, wow, this guy, he was in the Marine Corps just like me. Now he's he's the head financial manager for Wells Fargo in Phoenix. The guy's making probably $1 million a year or whatever it is. Like starting to really tap into what people that were in your shoes are doing. That was huge for me, because anytime that I could make that connection, it made it more real. I was like, oh wow. Like, I remember even meeting a guy, you probably know him, at 12 News. I only met him a couple of times, but I think he was a PJ in the Navy. I cannot remember his name, but again, like that was just like a reality factor. It's like, wow, this guy was doing my job like probably 10 years ago. And now he's, doing something that I could see myself doing. So I think that, yeah, that's the long of it, is just plan and hit those timelines. Like, don't waver from those short-term goals that are going to lead to the long-term, which is ultimately, hey, you're going to get your DD 214 and it's going to be a big celebration, but are you walking off a cliff or are you walking through a new door? Because I think that can easily be a cliff if you're not looking at it with that type of respect.
Yeah. So where are you finding these people? You're on LinkedIn. You're in your everyday life. Not burning bridges. You're setting up connections. They're probably not on TikTok.
Possibly, maybe a few.
But yeah, so I think that's kind of what you're getting at. Always be looking for these opportunities.
Right. And just allowing yourself to feed off of it and ask questions, like if you meet somebody that, and that's where that brotherhood too with the service members, like, I say once a Marine, always a Marine. I don't think the Air Force says anything like that, but it's still a veteranship, if that's a word, but that's something that you also have to be cognizant of and willing to utilize, like, because for you and I, or, if there's a service member that asks me a question about transitioning, man, I want to talk to him for half hour, an hour, like, here's what I did, here's what you may want to consider, and just really being vocal about that, because I think that we, at the end of the day, we want nothing more than to see each other succeed and to help one another, and, to be there to, celebrate, not only our service, but what we're doing afterward. And yeah, that network that forever is a part of us in the service is huge. And
so do you always maintain this 5-year sort of plan?
I have, more recently, it's been something that because it starts off as kind of like a service level, but then it's like, I think for me, the easiest relatability is my kids. Like, my oldest son just turned 14. So like now if I'm thinking like my 5-year plan, I'm like, wow, he's going to be starting college in 5 years.
Yeah.
Or he may want to join the service in 5 years. So it's like, okay, as a father, as, a person in his life, like, okay, where do I want to be at that time? And that's huge, because, that's when all of those other factors come into play, be it finances, be it, what you're doing professionally, and what you're, doing in all respects. Like, hey, am I, going on vacations with my family as often as I should be? Are my priorities aligned? So yeah, I think that the 5-year, and yeah, that's probably kind of a large, that's why I say the vision board side of it, but it's really important to channel that back, like to, take that 5 years and put it all the way down to 3 days, and kind of just go at it that way, man, because I know we didn't go into a lot of this, but I'm like recalibrating that part of my mind right now, because it's been one of those years, COVID, I guess, just welcome to the party, but it's important to just keep those, goals like attainable, but set them higher than what you might be capable of, kind of like in the service, you get told to go work on this $35 million jet for a young mechanic in the Air Force. Like, oh, okay, wow, go do it, and I guess that's like the best way for me to, convince myself. It's like, hey, I was put in position to do this. Like, I am capable, and, I'm going to kick its ass,
Yeah. And a lot of this is just self-marketing.
Right.
I think coming from your background, you've got this marketing mind. And
right.
So that's the approach that you're taking as somebody who's preparing to leave the military.
Yeah, that's a great point, man, because that's huge. the self-marketing side of it, like, yeah, you're gonna have buddies, you're gonna have a fellow, like, I know there are a lot of groups out there that we hire service members, and those outfits are great. But at the same time, you probably have the stats to match this, but being at conflict for a decade plus, there are more veterans than I think there may have ever been. I don't know the actual stat behind that, but so even though our community is large and, it's also competitive. So I think that you've got to understand that. It's like when we are in our uniform, we are competitive against each other because we know that, we're up for the same promotion or the same assignment, but got to carry that mindset into this civilian sector because there's a lot of us. It's as prevalent, and unfortunately, it's not the most uncommon thing to be a service member these days, just based upon circumstances. So I think that that's a big mindset that has to be carried forward too. It's like, okay, yeah, I wasn't just a Marine, I wasn't just an airman. What did I actually, like, how do I sell that? How do I market that? Like, it's not just as simple as saying, oh, hey, I was in the service. I think that that's important to note for sure.
And so what's next? If you could, like, what's on your 5-year plan at this moment? What's your ultimate goal?
So right now with everything that's going on with the agency that I'm at, and really it's just becoming more and more fulfilling, like just kind of immersing into that dynamic. So I'm just I want to continue to grow and excel, and then that side of it. And for me, like, on the shorter docket is, with being on your podcast and, having somebody in my network like you, this is something that I've wanted to do for a good while. And so for me, it's right now I'm working on getting that, infrastructure put together to start producing content, because I think for me, not only is it important to market myself, but I love to market others and tell their stories. And that is a huge goal of mine right now. So I think that on the surface level, and in 5 years, I'd like to have, faster than that, but something that's well oiled and, functioning as, because I think about my kids, like, that would be something that I want to be able to share with them. And not only share with them, but I think that stories that we have all around us are so important to be shared. And so that's like kind of the main thing that is on my docket right now. But I think that on a more professional level, I just want to, gosh, it's going to seem simple and kind of, I just want to become a more content person, content in the respect to not just, being fulfilled financially, being fulfilled professionally and personally, but just having that, ability to manage your expectations and to allow the world to come to you. Because I think that at the end of the day, that's something that we get trying to move. We try to move too fast and we forget what's right in front of us. So I think that I just want to be a more content person. And yeah, it's not the probably greatest of answers, but yeah.
In terms of being content with where you are and still being able to realize where you want to be is again, it's just another balancing act that we have to figure out as we go through life. I've done the same thing when I was thinking about bringing back this podcast. It's like, well, why can't I just be happy with doing what I'm doing and only that? But I have a lot of reasons for why I want to do this podcast. It's these conversations. They help me personally. They help the guests, as I hear, as they say. I get off these calls and I'll get a message from that guest just minutes after that saying, hey, thanks. I really needed to have that conversation, because it brings up thoughts that people hadn't had. And I missed these interview opportunities that I had in my everyday public affairs life.
Right.
Just talking to people, figuring out who they are and what they want to do. So I was like, well, I'm going to bring that podcast back, and we'll figure out a way to be content once I get that up and running.
Right, man. And I think too, like what you and I are probably feeling, but not vocalizing well enough is like be content, but to also serve. And I think that for all service members, that desire, that willingness is something that is kind of at our core. Like we want to be a part of, helping others in a capacity larger than ourselves. And, I think for you, like with this podcast, the whole focus, being around helping service members kind of take that next step, or, understanding that if they do have a misstep, that we've all probably been in that situation, and that there's still hope, there's still a path. And man, I think that your desire to do that, like, yeah, you're content, but I think that I understand that you also know that there's, some help that can be provided for others. And yeah, man, and that's something that inspires me about like what you're doing, and to want to similarly carry a torch like that. But yeah, mine's going to be called the Pants Off podcast.
Who knows? Who knows what that means? I do need some help, though. I just realized that my red light on the microphone has been off, so I'm sure the sound just changed. I don't know if it was any worse before than it is
I've
now.
heard you clearly throughout.
That's good to know. But do you have anything else that you'd like to add? Anything we didn't talk about here?
No, man, I think that that pretty much wraps it up for me. And I think that one thing that for anybody that is listening and hears this, that like Michael, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on social, and I think that there've been more times than I can count that sometimes those best conversations, whether it was me seeking somebody or somebody seeking me, were complete strangers. Like we only shared our service, we only shared that particular part of us. And I think that, yeah, I want to make myself available, and I think that whatever it might be, somebody wanting to go into marketing, or somebody wanting to go from the active branch to a reserve of another branch, like I did, that yeah, I would just want people to not hesitate to reach out.
All right, so you are on LinkedIn, Tyler Bolken, and you say you are on social right now?
Yep. Yeah. Had taken a hiatus there for a little bit, but yeah, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook and TikTok.
Come on. I gotta find you on social then. Are you back? I think I have to add you because you left.
I know. I coming back with guns blazing. So.
Well, good luck with the Pants Off podcast, of course.
It was a joke, just to be clear. Man.
So can you talk about any of that? What's your goal with this podcast you want to do?
Yeah. So real quick. So I think that what really drove this home, like emotionally for me, beyond anything I had felt pushing me to do it before, was my younger brother passed away last October 18th. And it's been a roller coaster of emotions, and I think that, coming up on a year already that happened, and it's just been crazy difficult. And I think for me, like one of the things that I miss most, that I took for granted, was just being able to call my brother, whether it was once a month, once a week, and have those conversations that you have with a brother or somebody extremely close to you, that you kind of take for granted, right? Like, because you grew up together, what, are going on with mom and dad, like what my pain points are, like and for me, that's what I want my podcast to be an extension of is, phone calls with my brother. And obviously that's going to be with guests. But it's going to be in that dialogue of having the gratitude and appreciation for being content with what's around you, but what may not be available tomorrow. And I think that, and sharing those experiences around, like, the structure, the format's going to be around, grit. And I think that that's something that, my brother carried a lot of. And what I mean by that more specifically, like in the context of talking with somebody, are, where have you felt grit? Where have you felt, that pride of, doing what others don't like to, or like, that part of your personality that is, kind of the chip on your shoulder, your armor, like how do you exhibit that? And obviously we can do that a lot of ways, professionally, personally. And I think that in talking about that's going to kind of lean into, okay, the grace, like, okay, you've got this grit, that's kind of like your self, starter, right? But then the grace is understanding that you've got people around you, you've got mentors, you've got, those people that are put in your life that you could have never expected. And I think that comes with, a lot of, it brings a lot of growth on us. So it's going to be going into grace or gratitude, grit, grace, and then gratitude is like what you're grateful for in those respects, or those instances, experiences. And then lastly, I know it's not going to be religious focus. These are just the words that came to mind. But then the last portion of the podcast can be the gospel. Like, what's your gospel to somebody? Like, having just heard your story, having learned about you, like, what's your message to somebody that, is a complete stranger, somebody that, could use your wisdom that you have from your experiences. And, as I think about that, there's a lot of folks around me that have those stories, and, to be able to share them and talk about my brother along the way, that's the ultimate goal. And then, to market the heck out of them, because I think that, with a lot of people, that I want to be able to not only share their story and interview them, but I also want to package it in a way that, like, hey, your story matters. What you just shared matters, whether it's, one of my good buddies that's a nurse here in Phoenix during COVID and going through everything, or whether it's a, a Marine Sergeant Major that I served with that was in for 20 years. So as I start to visualize it in that respect, like, okay, what would grit mean for them? Like, and what would, grace, like, who was in their life, because everybody's story is unique. And I think that's my goal. And then, it's my phone call with my brother, at the end of the day, it kind of like you had said early on, just like having this conversation is, yeah, it's everything, man. And
Yeah, that sounds truly excellent, and I totally look forward to when you get that off the ground. Listening in on what sounds like it might be a 4G, maybe a 5G podcast. We'll see what you come up with, but keep your pants on.
yeah, no, it's called my Dead Brothers podcast.
Oh,
I think that, yeah, that may seem like there's a lack of sincerity in that, but I want that title to kind of hit somebody. Like, there's so there's a little bit of a, clickbaity factor to that, of course. But
yeah, that is gripping.
yeah, that's the title. And it's going to launch next month. First episode is going to be on my birthday, October 5th. That's going to be my one gift that I want from everybody. And then the second episode will be on the 18th, and then ideally we'll go to a weekly format after that.
All right. Yeah. Let me know. Keep me in the loop on how that comes to fruition.
I appreciate you asking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited about it. I want to see what you're doing. And so, as always, great to talk to you. Part of me wishes I was still coming out to Arizona once a month.
Oh yeah, man.
You don't understand how much easier life is not doing that. So check that out October 5th. I know it's going to be an interesting podcast. He's been putting in a lot of work on this, and he's dedicating it to his late brother, Cody. In fact, the title of his podcast, October 5th, is My Dead Brothers Podcast. You can find him on Instagram at Tyler Bolken as well to follow how that's going. Many thanks to Tyler for being on the podcast. I always appreciate the guests for their time, their stories, and openness. If you or someone that you know has a story about military service and the transition to the civilian world that followed that service, I am always looking for guests. I'm easy to find. You can look up the Boots Off podcast or Mike Lahrman and just send me a message. Also check out www.lahr.media. That's www.lar.media. That's it for episode 12. Next week, we talk to a veteranpreneur who served as a Navy corpsman in the early 2000s with the invasion of Iraq, and now he's giving back to veterans and the community with behavioral health and habit training through food. So check that out next week.